Today in Reader's Workshop, we're reading The Rag Coat, written by Lauren Mills. To understand today's story, we need to understand a little bit about where it takes place. And it takes place somewhere, kind of a long time ago, along the Appalachian Mountains, the range that starts up in Canada and comes all the way through, as you can see in the orange, down through Georgia in the United States. One of the things that was found, a natural resource found along this mountain range in a lot of places, was coal, and people often have the job of being a coal miner. Now, coal is a sedimentary rock that is found in the earth, and it was used mostly for fuel sources years ago. We still use it somewhat today, but we found other sources of fuel that are safer and better for us. But this black rock had to be dug out of the earth. And so some people's jobs were to be coal miners, and they would be way deep into the earth digging out that coal by hand back in those days. And it was dark, and when you chunked off the coal, black powder would, appear and get in their lungs, and a lot of people got sick. And it was a hard job being just down inside the earth for the whole day. So all that to kind of explain that that's what this main character girl's dad did for a job. He was a coal miner, and she grew up somewhere along these mountains. In winter, Papa carried me to church in a burlap feed sack because I didn't have a coat. Mama, Papa, Clemmy, and me, we'd all hitch a ride on Jeremy Miller's hay wagon and huddle under Mama's big quilt. I know Papa loved that quilt because he said it had all the nice bright colors of the day in it, and the day was something he hardly ever saw. He worked down in the black coal mines and didn't come up till the sun was gone. I told Papa it was warmer under that quilt than if I had a coat. He always laughed when I said that and told me, "Mina, you got the right way of thinking. People only need people and nothing else. Don't you ever forget that." Now, readers, let's stop for a minute and think about what we know about this family. You're probably thinking that they're kind of poor, that they do seem very loving to each other. They're happy with simple things. That girl is in an old, what was filled with probably food for their animals. And it's just a rough little sack, and she's using that as a coat because they can't afford to get a coat for her right now. But they seem to really love each other, and they're content. They're not complaining about their life. And then when we think about what her daddy's quote said when he said, "People only need people and nothing else. Don't you forget that." What do you think that he's trying to tell us? Papa got sick with the miner's cough and couldn't work much, so Mama stitched day and night on her quilts to try to make some money. When I was old enough to start school, I couldn't go. They needed me at home to help Mama. I would card all her quilt stuffing and keep Clemmy's dirty fingers out of that cotton. I made a doll for myself by stitching up some of Mama's quilt scraps and stuffing cotton inside. I talked to her like she was my friend because I didn't have any. Mama was too busy for much talk, and when Papa was home, he mostly stared out the window. The summer I was 8, Papa called me over to his rocking chair. I climbed up on his lap and he said, "You're getting big, Mina." "Too big for laps?" I asked. "Not too big for mine," he said softly, "but too big to still be at home. It's nearing time you went to school." I could hardly hold back my smiling just thinking about all the friends I would have, but I didn't want to leave Mama without a helper. "Papa," I said, "I can't go to school. Mama needs me here." Papa just looked at me real steady and said, "They have books at school, Mina. You can learn things from those books that you can't learn at home." "But I don't have a coat, Papa." I quietly reminded him. Mina, he said, don't you worry about a coat. I'll think of something. But he never got the chance. Papa died that summer. Readers, this book is great at helping us to feel lots of different feelings. Pause for a minute and see if you can think and describe one of the feelings that you're feeling right now with this story. Can you imagine not being able to go to school? Everyone came at once and brought us food. I couldn't figure out how so many people could squeeze into our little cabin, but somehow they managed it. They all said they knew my papa well. I sat on a stool back by the wood stove with Clemmy on my lap so no one would step on us. I couldn't stand it. They all wore black like the coal mines that killed my papa. He didn't even like black. He liked all the bright colors of the day. So why were they wearing black, I wondered. School started in September. Mama said I could go, but I decided not to. I still didn't have a coat to wear, and I knew it was no use starting something I'd have to quit when the weather turned cold. Other mothers who had children in school came over to quilt with Mama. I called them the quilting mothers. That fall, they were all working on a pattern called Joseph's Coat of Many Colors. I looked at it and said, that Joseph sure was lucky to have such a coat. I wish I had one like that. Why do you say that, Mina? Ms. Miller asked me. Because then I could go to school, I said, a little embarrassed that I had mentioned it. Well now, Mina, said Miss Miller, I don't know that any of us have a spare coat we could hand down to you, but I'm sure we have some scraps to spare. We could piece them together, and you'd have a coat like Joseph's after all. Miss Miller looked around the room, and the other mothers nodded. Mama quickly protested. You all need those rags for your own quilts. Don't go giving us things you need yourselves. They paid no attention to Mama. Mrs. Hunter said, and we could use feed bags for the inside of the coat. My eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't embarrassed anymore. I said, I have a feed sack Papa used to carry me in. I ran and fetched it. Will this do? Yes, it would do just fine, they told me. Then I thought of something important. But you need to make quilts to sell. You can't take time out to quilt a coat. First things first, said Miss Miller, and they all repeated it. Mama smiled and shook her head, and I saw tears in her eyes too. Readers, are you wondering why they're crying now? I think this is a great example of sometimes you can have happy tears, and tears don't always have to be when something is sad and they're so excited and they're just kind of overcome with thankfulness and being glad for these sweet friends that are going to help to make her a coat. The very next day I went to school, running most of the way to keep warm and thinking all the while of the coat I would soon have. The schoolhouse was just one room filled with 14 children. I had seen most of them at church but never got the chance to talk to them much. I knew I would love school, even though I was put in the front row with the youngest ones, and Clyde Bradshaw whispered that it was because I was dumb. Then Shane Hunter pulled my braid, and Suchi Miller said I asked the teacher too many questions. But our teacher, Miss Campbell, smiled at me and said, smart people are those who have asked a lot of questions. My most favorite thing about school was sharing day. Each of us had our own day when we shared something special with the class. Clyde Bradshaw brought in the watch his grandpa gave him. It still ticked, and he made sure we all heard it. On her day, Lottie showed us the porcelain doll her aunt from New York had sent her. We all thought it was the most beautiful thing ever and wanted to touch it, but Lottie wouldn't let anyone near it. She said, "Nope, it's mine," which made everybody mad. I knew just what I would show when it was my sharing day, but I kept it a secret, and I knew the quilting mothers would keep it a secret too. Now think about what you think she'll show, and how do you think all the other kids will react when she shows it? Each day I hurried home to see my coat. It was looking like the colors of the fall days, the yellow golds of the birch leaves, the silvery grays and purples of the sky, the deep greens and browns of the pines, and the rusty reds of the chimney bricks. All the colors Papa would have chosen. I decided to put a piece of his work jacket in there just because it seemed right. Remember, readers are always thinking about what they're reading. What are you thinking right now? I'm thinking that this is going to be a very special coat, and I love that she can think of her Papa when she wears it. Okay, readers, we're going to pause it right there for today, and tomorrow we'll read on to find out what happens with her new coat.